I want to share a little bit of my conversation with Christina Applegate, talking at length for the first time about her multiple sclerosis diagnosis. Her emotions, as you can imagine, still raw, but she is determined to live life to the fullest.
For nearly 40 years, Christina Applegate has been part of American living rooms, first as the teenage wisecrack machine Kelly Bundy on Married, with Children, and later as one of the most beloved dramatic comedians of her generation. But over the past year, the story fans have been watching unfold isn't a script. It's real life, and it has been raw, painful, and at times almost unbearable to witness. Between a sudden hospitalization, a best-selling memoir that exposed decades of hidden suffering, and daily struggles that most people will never have to imagine, Christina has quietly given the public one of the most honest looks at chronic illness that Hollywood has ever seen. Here is what has actually been happening to her, according to her own words and confirmed reporting. The hospitalization nobody saw coming. In April of 2026, entertainment outlets began reporting that Christina had been hospitalized in Los Angeles. According to TMZ, she had reportedly been admitted since late March, though the exact reason for her stay was never made public. Her representative would only say that she had a long history of complicated medical issues that she had already been open about in her memoir and on her podcast. The timing caught fans off guard, because just weeks earlier Christina had been out promoting her new memoir, doing interviews, and appearing to be in relatively good spirits. Then she simply went quiet. Her podcast co-host, Jamie Lynn Sigler, had already announced in late March that their show would be going on a brief hiatus while both women were on book tours, which only added to the uncertainty once hospitalization rumors started circulating. The silence didn't last long. On April 20th, Christina broke it herself with an Instagram post that fans immediately recognized as classic Christina, equal parts reassuring and gut-wrenching. She thanked her followers for their love and support, and told them that health issues had simply become a constant in her life. She described herself as a strong woman who was getting stronger every day, and said she was taking time to focus on her health before coming back with more to share. The post included a photo of a coffee mug resting on top of her memoir, a small, almost playful detail that softened what was otherwise a serious update. Christina has previously revealed, on her own podcast, that she has been hospitalized more than 30 times since her diagnosis, largely due to symptoms like vomiting, severe pain, and digestive complications tied to her illness. Multiple sclerosis, she has explained, slows the function of the body's organs, and for her that has meant recurring trips to the emergency room that most fans never hear about until they leak out through reporting like this. Living with a disease that rewrites the rules every day. Christina was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in the summer of 2021, while she was in the middle of filming the final season of her Netflix series Dead to Me. She first announced the diagnosis to fans directly on social media that August, describing it as a strange and difficult journey, but one made easier by the support of others who understood what she was going through. She has said that she first noticed something was wrong when her leg would unexpectedly buckle on set, and that a co-star, actress Selma Blair, who has her own experience with MS, was the one who urged her to get tested. Looking back, Christina now believes the disease may have actually been present in her body for 6 or 7 years before she was ever formally diagnosed. Her first public appearance after going public with the diagnosis came at her Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony in November 2022, where she walked out in bare feet and joked with the crowd about her condition rather than hiding from it, setting the tone for how openly she would continue to discuss her illness in the years that followed. Since going public with her diagnosis, she has been remarkably direct about how much the disease has taken from her physically. In a widely discussed appearance on a popular talk podcast, she admitted that she barely leaves her house anymore, explaining that if people could see what her daily life actually looked like, they would understand why. She has described mornings where her hands are so cramped she can't move them, moments where she cannot walk to the bathroom without help, and days where getting out of bed at all simply is not possible. She has spoken about the isolation of that reality too, noting that most people around her cannot fully grasp what her body goes through on an average day, because MS is often invisible from the outside even as it dismantles someone's independence from the inside. She has also opened up about the emotional side of living with an unpredictable, progressive disease. In interviews tied to her memoir, she described the disease as something that will slowly take everything from her over time, whether that unfolds across 20 years or 30. She has said she wakes up most days already in discomfort, unable to move her head normally, unable to walk without assistance, and has asked people to stop commenting on how well she looks, because appearances, she says, do not reflect what her body is actually experiencing underneath. Planning for the end while still fighting to stay. Perhaps the most emotionally striking revelation Christina has shared recently came during an appearance on NPR's Wildcard podcast in March of 2026. Speaking with a calm honesty that surprised many listeners, she revealed that she had already purchased her own burial plots. Not one, but three, spaced together in a location she says she had been drawn to for a long time. She explained that when the spot she wanted became available, she moved quickly to secure it, because she wanted to spare her family from having to make that decision later, in the middle of grief. She has said she plans to plant a tree over the site so that visitors won't have to stand in the sun, and that she intends to have a picnic there with a close friend once the weather cooperates. Christina has been candid that thoughts of death cross her mind every single day, not out of despair exactly, but because living with a progressive illness makes mortality impossible to ignore. What has moved her to tears in interviews isn't the idea of her own death, but the impact it could have on her teenage daughter, Sadie. She has admitted, through visible emotion, that she doesn't know what her daughter's life will look like without her, and that the uncertainty of when things might change frightens her far more than the disease itself. Buying the plots, she has explained, was one of the only pieces of this experience she actually got to control, at a time when so much else has been taken from her without her consent. The career she has quietly let go of. When production resumed on the final season of Dead to Me after Christina's diagnosis, filming had to pause for months while the production figured out what was physically possible for her. When shooting picked back up, the show was rebuilt around her limitations, with crew members adjusting camera angles, physically assisting her during scenes, and allowing her to use a wheelchair between takes. She has spoken with deep gratitude about her co-star Linda Cardellini, calling her one of the greatest actors and best people she has ever known, and has said she feels fortunate that her final on-camera performance was alongside someone who protected her so completely during that difficult stretch. Since Dead to Me wrapped, Christina has said publicly, including in an interview with Vanity Fair, that she likely will not act on camera again. She has explained that the physical demands of a film or television set, long hours, walking to marks, and the general stamina required, are simply no longer realistic for her body. She has said she is still open to voiceover work, since it can be done seated, in shorter bursts, with breaks whenever she needs them, and because it allows her to keep working and supporting her family without the physical toll of a traditional set. A friendship built on shared understanding. A major part of Christina's life over the past 2 years has been her podcast, Messy, which she co-hosts with actress Jamie Lynn Sigler, best known for playing mezzo-soprano on The Sopranos. Sigler has lived with relapsing MS for more than 2 decades, having kept her own diagnosis private for roughly 15 years before going public in 2016. When Christina was diagnosed years later, Sigler was one of the first people to reach out to her, and the two eventually turned their shared experience into a weekly show where they talk openly about the disease, their careers, and everyday life. Christina has said the podcast has given her something the entertainment industry could never fully offer, a community of people who understand exactly what she is going through, along with a sense of purpose that doesn't depend on being seen on camera. The show has also become a space where other well-known figures have shown up to share their own struggles. Actress Katie Sagal, who played Christina's mother on Married, with Children, has appeared as a guest and opened up about her own decades-long relationship with alcoholism, describing it as its own kind of life-altering illness. Married, with Children cast members and other longtime friends have also joined at various points, adding perspective on what it was like watching Christina grow up in front of the cameras. For Christina, these conversations have functioned as something closer to validation than entertainment. People who knew her as a teenager, then as a young woman, and now in her 50s, have been able to acknowledge publicly what she had quietly been carrying for years, often long before she had the words or the platform to describe it herself. The eating disorder she hid for years. In March of 2026, Christina released her memoir, titled You with the Sad Eyes, which quickly became a bestseller. In it, and in interviews tied to its release, she revealed something she had kept largely hidden for decades, a long battle with anorexia that began around the time she was cast as Kelly Bundy at just 15 years old. She has written that she already struggled with body image and disordered eating before landing the role, but that the character's tight, revealing wardrobe pushed her deeper into those patterns, because she felt she had to maintain an extremely thin frame to wear the clothes she had envisioned for Kelly. She has described severely restricting her food intake for long stretches at a time, and has said the costume department regularly had to alter her clothing smaller as the show went on. She has been clear, however, that she does not blame the cast, crew, or producers for what she went through, describing her relationship with food at the time as something rooted in earlier personal trauma rather than pressure from any one person on set. Christina has connected her disordered eating to a broader need for control, explaining that during periods when she felt powerless in other parts of her life, restricting food gave her a sense of command over at least one thing. She has said she was never fully satisfied with her body no matter how hard she worked at it, describing exhausting routines that combined intense exercise with severe food restriction in pursuit of a standard she now recognizes as unobtainable. Looking back on the show itself, she has admitted discomfort with certain moments that were played for laughs at the time, saying she views some of that material differently now than she did as a teenager living through it. The man who became family. Throughout all of this, one relationship has remained a constant anchor for Christina, her bond with her married, with children co-star Ed O'Neill, who played her on-screen father, Al Bundy. Christina has said publicly that Ed effectively helped raise her, having stepped into a protective role when she was still a teenager working long hours on a major network show. That relationship has only deepened since her diagnosis. She has spoken about talking to him on the phone regularly, and he has remained a steady presence at major moments in her life, including her Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony in 2022 and the Married, with Children cast reunion that took place in early 2026. What comes next? Christina has been open that she doesn't know exactly what the future holds. MS is unpredictable by nature, with some stretches feeling almost manageable and others feeling overwhelming in ways that are difficult to put into words. What she has been consistent about is what still matters most to her: her daughter, her husband, musician Martin Lenoble, her extended television family from Married, with Children, and the community of people living with MS who have connected with her through her podcast and memoir. When asked whether she regrets being so public about her struggles, she has repeatedly said no, explaining that choosing to speak honestly about all of it is one of the few parts of this entire experience that has truly felt like hers to control. Everything else, the diagnosis, the pain, the loss of the career she spent decades building, was handed to her without any say in the matter. The decision to talk about it, she has said, was hers alone, and it's a decision that has clearly resonated with millions of people watching her navigate an experience most public figures would have kept hidden entirely. What do you think about everything Christina Applegate has shared about her health and how she's chosen to handle it? Let us know in the comments below.